Hello, everyone. Welcome to the US Games Buzz. My name is Alison DeNicola, and I am here today. Our intention for this interview or for this series of interviews is to present our artists and creators to you and to allow you to get a little bit more of their energy and their inspiration and light and hear how they brought their great creations into being. I'm super excited today to be speaking with Liz Huston. She is the creator, artist, author of the Dreamkeepers Tarot, which I'll give you a little preview. We'll be talking about that today. Amazing, gorgeous card deck. So welcome, Liz, and I'm just going to read a little bit about you and then let you jump in, and we'll get going. So Liz Huston is a native of Los Angeles, California. She says she may live in a place known for interesting characters, but it's in her imagination where the truly unique characters exist. In her complex imagery, Huston creates an esoteric narrative that hints at a logic far beyond the average and mundane. Entirely self-taught, Huston's artwork has evolved from traditional film photography in the 90s to digital photo montage in the early thousands, and further expanded by combining acrylics, oil, watercolors with her digital works. Since 2012, she has exhibited her artworks in her studio shop, where she's joining us today. Amazing, it looks right behind you. The art gallery she owns and operates located in the famous and beloved The Last Bookstore in downtown Los Angeles. That's so cool. Huston is the author and artist of the Dreamkeepers Tarot, which was published in 2021 by US Games and is currently working on her next project. Welcome, Liz Huston.
Thank you.
So nice to have you. So nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Yeah. And so I want to jump right in and just ask you, tell us about the creation of the Dreamkeepers Tarot, and that it took you 10 years or more,
10
right?
years.
To
yes.
get this going.
Yes.
Wow.
The first version I began September 30th of 2008, and I finished it September 29th of 2018. So like
Wow.
one day shy of 10 years. And that was because I did it Kickstarter. So that was when I finished that version. And then obviously I'd made some changes before you guys published it. And so that added 2 more years to the tally. But the initial deck was 10 years. And my life changed dramatically in that time. And I honestly never thought I would finish the deck. So as I made each piece, it was they did come a double duty. Like they were art primarily. And then when I started to get closer to finishing, I started to go back and add the cups or the swords or the pentacles and kind of tweak the narrative a little bit so that it suited the cards more. But yeah, so there's 2 versions of every card pretty much.
Oh, wow. Awesome. So yeah, I was going to ask you about that. Like what's different, what was different in that point of time from 2018 when you first published it independently to the version that, is here now, the US Games version. But I want to, before you answer that question, I want to just go back and say,
okay,
what evolved? Because I understand this from creative process. What evolved from like 2008 when you started, like your idea, what you set out to be doing, to when you finished that first version? Like, what was the transformation? Because there's always transformation, right?
It was huge. It was huge. I began it as a photographer with like wanting to be a painter, but not having any skill, being self-taught, just aside from ceramics when I was a kid, which I love to do. But so in creating the art, weird things would happen. Like my printer would break right the night before a show. So I had a bunch of ruined prints, but I had no way to reprint them on a Sunday night before I delivered on Monday. So I spent the entire evening painting to fix what the printer had messed up. And that was when I realized, I could paint. I could like add paint. And so that opened up a whole world of possibility. And I just was like, what happens if I do watercolor? What happens if I do acrylic? Like, how do I incorporate oil? Because I love that medium the most. And, so the evolution was just an organic growth period. And now like nothing is off the table. I've made sculptures, I've made paper mache, I've made a tower of cards and I photographed that, and I used, just everything is available to me because the journey opened all of that up. If that makes sense.
No, it does make sense. And what I love about that is because I've kind of experienced those things myself where it's like you give yourself permission all of a sudden because you maybe didn't see yourself as, there's maybe that idea of like, I have to do this a certain way, or this has to be, maybe some level of perfect, that's my own thing.
Oh, that still sneaks in for sure.
Yeah. But then all of a sudden when you start doing it, it's like, it's just natural. And then it becomes like the thing floods open of the creativity. Yeah. So, wow, that's amazing. Awesome.
And it becomes more like play, which I think is like the core of creativity is play, right? So like the fresher I kept my process, the more it was playful. And because I never thought I'd finish the deck, I didn't take it as seriously as my perfectionist self would want to.
Which is probably a good thing, right?
I know. I think it's the only way it got done.
So what was your final push? Like what was the final push to get it done in 2018? Did you have like a big surge of energy? Did something happen? Were you inspired?
It was December 12th. And I remembered it because I had a conversation with one of my dear friends, and we were talking about like, if we only had a certain amount of years left, what would we do with it? And I was like, all I want is to actually make this deck. And she's like, well, how many cards are left? And I said, 20. And so we sat down and figured out if I could do 20 cards from December 12th until like the summer. And I decided I could. So she kept me accountable. And so every couple of days she would text me or email me and say like, what card have you worked on? Like, where are you in the process? And just because I became aware of the finite nature of time. And when I was really close to finishing, I decided to launch the Kickstarter, which was a huge push because suddenly and it blew up. The Kickstarter was way bigger than I expected. The limited resource of time was what made me finish.
Yeah. Awesome. Amazing. And so you did the writing too in this deck, which is really impressive. I was reading the book this weekend and I was like, I love her writing. I mean, I really, so I'm really inspired by what you wrote. So not only are the images really compelling and very unique, but I love the writing. So the writing that goes along with it is really like top notch.
Thank you.
What I wanted to ask you about this was, because there's a lot of feminine, divine feminine in here. And, was that a conscious choice that you made? Part of the evolution of the deck? Or did you just find yourself being pulled there? Was the goddess pulling you? Represent this more? Just wanted to know what,
Oh yeah, no, that's a great question. So my spiritual path began with like paganism and, very earth-based kind of study, I guess you could say, and practice. And it was all the goddess studies way, way, way back then that just drew me over and over and over. And my first love is the goddess. I know that sounds ridiculous, but I just genuinely when I discovered that there was such a thing as the goddess, I was like, I'm getting kind of emotional about it because, it really changed my life to see the feminine reflected in the divine, which I grew up in a very traditional kind of religious household where that wasn't part of the vernacular, part of the beliefs or anything. And everything I make, it seems to be more and more, I'm just in love with her. And I just keep making things as a reflection of that love. So it was really natural and organic. And actually the male cards, the last card I made was the Emperor, because I really struggle with that, especially the authoritarian kind of nature of the Emperor. Like that was really hard for me because it's so the edges are so hard and the goddess is so soft, even though there's some really dark goddesses. So yeah,
I think the guys in this deck are very, very serious and straight-laced looking. I noticed that. I was like, wow, these guys are really, But there's no problem with that. I was just, going through the deck myself to say, um, like what cards were like that just drew me personally, which I'll share in a minute.
Oh, I can't
Um,
wait.
but I wanted to ask you, so from the time you did the Kickstarter and you launched, how did that go? Like what happened and how did you make your evolution over to us? So that
Well,
people know to hear that.
yeah, for sure. So I've had this shop in downtown, so I have a pretty nice following, regular customers and collectors, and I have a pretty nice group of people that support me. And I thought, well, I'll just raise $8,000, make maybe a couple hundred decks, and it'll be fine. Well, I raised $8,000 in like 20 hours, and on Kickstarter, and then it just like snowballed, and I think I ended at like 45,000 or something by the end of it, and it was only a 28-day campaign. And it blew me away. I actually didn't push it as much as I should have because it was emotionally and energetically so overwhelming and unexpected. I couldn't wrap my head around it. Like, how is this happening? And the feedback was just so good, and everybody loved it. And it was actually my birthday, and I thought, I want US Games to publish this. I could see it and I could feel it, and I just, without even thinking about it, I typed up a letter and I sent a deck off to you guys, and I heard back so fast it made my head spin. But it was really just an impulse, and I didn't even allow the like negative part of my brain to do anything to like jeopardize or sabotage that. I just went, put it in the mail,
I mean,
and then I sat down.
yeah.
I was like, what did I do?
I love that. I love that. And I just love that, like synchronistically, immediately, I'm sure, when they, when it came in, they were like, we got to have this. So, amazing. Awesome. And so what transpired, like what changed, just, briefly, like what changed between your original version, or, just what was refined or changed, or, or is it mostly, how you intended it in the beginning? You know, it's always nice to be able to have a second turn, right? To be like, oh,
Right?
I'm going to clean this up or do that a different way.
I felt that there were a handful of cards that I really felt like I just didn't quite nail the first time. And I wasn't sure why. Not that they were bad cards or anything. I just kind of knew that there was, every time they'd come up in a reading, I'd be like, ooh, I didn't quite, like the Queen of Pentacles. That was the big one that in my first deck, but I just felt like I just didn't. And I think it was because personally, I was really afraid of like success. Like that was a huge one. And that's why the Kickstarter freaked me out. And I think that's why I had such a hard time, because the deck is so much me. It's so authentic and genuine to who I am that I couldn't fake any of the cards. So that's why the men are very like, I don't understand you at all, and I'm going to try, So after the Kickstarter and after kind of the, just the confidence boosting of like signing with US Games, the Queen of Pentacles, I just saw her and I made her so quickly, like the new version. And she's like who I became as a result of the process.
Awesome. Isn't that beautiful? Wow. Yeah, you are the Queen of Pentacles now. Right? You got that.
I saw, scares me a little.
Yeah, of course. And I think that's the biggest thing, like with creative process. I mean, I could just from my own things and people that I know that are doing what you're doing, is that going through our own little obstacles, big or small, shouldn't say they're little, of getting through our obstacles, and that push, because there is this big push that we have to push through to get to the other side. And that a lot of that is that resistance is just, oh my goodness, what if I am as fantastic, and successful and amazing, as I'm becoming, or I already am? What if that's my reality? That could, it's like, what?
Yeah, let's just slow down a bit.
Yeah. So it's awesome. I love it. I did read in your book, in the beginning of your book, you said that you have been reading Rider-Waite for like 27 years. So just tell me a little bit about that. Like that's a long time to be hooked up with,
right. And they still have the same deck. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. So you still have the same deck. Wow. I'd
Um,
love you to pull that
yeah.
out one day and show us that
I wish I would have brought it with me. Yeah.
what version of that deck it is. But um, so Pamela Coleman Smith and Rider-Waite is like our she's like our goddess, in
Yes.
at US
Yes.
Games. She really has informed so much of what we do and the evolution of the company and our growth in tarot and how we just are seeing this amazing expansion of the tarot system. And so it's really amazing and interesting to me that you've been reading with that deck, which some people will just say, well, that's just the standard, or it's the this or the that. So just tell me a little bit, like how did that feed into your doing your readings, or even your personal personal insight through that Rider-Waite deck?
Yeah. So it was given to me on my 18th birthday by my best friend, who's still my best friend. And because when I turned 18, I left my parents' house and I just went straight into everything that was esoteric, occult, just like dove into everything. And so she gave me a deck because she had heard that you're not supposed to buy your own, which I disagree with, but whatever, she gave it to me. And I just started giving readings. And she asked me, like one night, we were roommates at the time, and she asked me if she was ever going to meet anyone. And I was like, let's see what the cards say. And so I decided I did a Celtic cross, and I looked and I was like, oh, I think it's going to be 3 weeks. And it startled both of us because I was like, wait, what just happened? And she did 3 weeks to the day. She met someone who turned out to be studying tarot as well. And so he taught me so much in like just a few weeks. Like we would sit down like every night, the three of us, and she would get bored and leave. And then he would just go through each card, and I still have my notes that I wrote down from those nights when he was teaching me. And then they like broke up and he went away, and we never got to the major arcana, but I had the minors with these like notes from this brilliant teacher that he had. And I just naturally fell in love with them and was aligned with them. And the readings came so easily. Like I just understood the language. Like I can't even explain how I understood the language, but I didn't have to study a lot. I just did readings for everybody that I could think of, everybody that wanted one. I was just always doing readings for free. And then I decided I wanted to be an artist. And it was actually that deck that taught me how to be an artist and how to tell a visual story. And I'd become self-employed. I'd quit my job, and I had this little traveling curiosity shop. And I was married, and my life was very different then. But my time was basically in this traveling curiosity shop, and on the side, I was making a deck. And my idea was it was going to be called the Ancestry Tarot, because I'd been collecting antique photos for like my whole life. And so I got to like the 64th card out of the 78. And my computer crashed and my backup crashed, and I lost a year's worth of work, and that entire deck like just vanished. And I was heartbroken. It took me a year before I started again because it was just so devastating of a loss. But what I realize now is that like that was school, right? Like, and her amazing artwork, her precise artwork, the colors were so specific, and the gestures and the movement, like that deck taught me everything I know about art right now, like how to tell narrative art. And I am so grateful for that deck. And I either use the Rider-Waite, my original one, or the Dreamkeepers. Like I don't use any other decks anymore. I know it sounds crazy,
I
but
love it. No, I love it. I think it's awesome. Because I think I also read in your book that you wrote that the cards were the Dreamkeepers themselves.
yeah.
And so can you elaborate on that? Just share a little bit with folks. Like, what is that? Like I love that idea. Like that the cards are the Dreamkeepers, or the cards have their magic. They have their messaging. They have their intentional pull. They're what is helping to all of us to find the answers, the guidance, what we need. That was my interpretation, but I'd love to hear how that came about for you.
No, that's true. That's very true. They're like the archetypes were really alive in all of the cards and all the art, and I was dialoguing with them, and it was a very intense process. I mean, like the tower was making the tower, like the night before a show, I was still painting on the canvas, and the easel broke, and I had to finish painting it on my knees, and it, like the tower came crashing down, right? That's how the process was. But in the 10 years, I got a divorce. I, downsized my life. I was a single mom. I started another business. I mean, like, life had a lot of transitions, and it was really hard. It wasn't easy at all. And I would lose faith that I would ever finish a deck because I lost my first one, and that was a huge heartbreak. But the cards never left me. Like, in my darkest moment, all of a sudden I would like come up with another card, and I'd be like, okay, I'm still doing this. All right, I'm still showing up. And they just kept on really gently. They were never like harsh with me, except for maybe that tower a little bit.
Yeah.
But they really like held fast. They wanted to exist. They wanted a partner.
Is this art in your shop? I mean, is there, have you had like a show of this deck?
Yes.
Or okay.
Yes, I did
Awesome.
have a show of all 78 pieces, and I did them in spreads. I actually sat down with my deck and I did one spread after another. I figured out how many I needed, right, to make 78 to use the entire deck. And I had to take a nap afterwards. That took me like 3 hours to pull those readings.
That's so cool.
And it was so cool. It was really great.
I love that. I really feel like that's like, so if I came to your shop, is any of this art there?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
So,
yeah.
like that's the death right there.
I just had that.
And that's the Hierophant on that side. The one in the middle is one of my newer pieces that's not in the deck.
Yeah. It's like Mother Mary in the middle there. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, she's my homage to the Pythia, the Oracle Delphi.
Oh, awesome. Beautiful.
It's hard to see. She's kind of overexposed.
Yeah. I could just see, just kind of the robe and the arms out. I love it. It's just such an amazing story, really. It's so great. I know how much hard work and effort goes into the creation, and I know especially when you're creating art, sometimes it just slows down, and like there's a trickle of inspiration that has to get ramped up again. But I pulled out a couple of cards that just caught my eye. There's so many, so I couldn't be like, I have to go this and this and this and this. But really, the first card that really caught my eye in the deck is what your translation to the Wheel of Fortune, which you call the Fates. I love that because I'm really fascinated with the idea of the Wheel of Fortune being like the timekeeper of universal forces, that kind of concept. And I didn't really think about like the Fates, who are play that same role, right? Like, Fates are predetermining things that are going to happen. And, just with the winds of change can push things in that direction, like in your favor. And so I thought that was really, really compelling. And I really couldn't stop looking at it because they're all kind of pieced, like they're missing their pieces in between. So I'm just giving a little visual there. Yeah. And then the other card that
can I say one thing about the Fates really quickly?
Of course, yes.
So my core idea with that was that I wanted to illustrate that they are the embodiment of the thread of life that they are also in charge of, because one spins the thread, one measures the thread, and one cuts the thread. So that's why they're in that spiral.
Oh, in the spiral. Awesome. Yeah. The other card that caught my eye right away was your interpretation of the Magician, which you call the Creatrix. And so tell us about your Creatrix. What? Yeah,
so she was one that came to me in a really dark moment. Like I was really low. I had lost faith in like everything, like I'm not going to make this work. Being self-employed is hard. Being a single mom is even worse. Just all of it was a really dark time. And I remember I sat down at my desk and closed my eyes, and I just all of a sudden I saw this like woman coming, like I saw these like bubbles coalescing to form a person. And I was like, oh, that's a neat idea. Like, and it had been a while since I had any ideas. And so I took that to my cushion, my meditation cushion, and I sat with it and I was like, who is this? What's going on? What am I seeing? And the card came to me almost fully formed, which never happens. Like I get a piece of an idea and then I have to kind of expand. But with the creatrix, like she knew who she was and what she was, and she just like showed up. And that was,
I love
she's
her.
in her full power.
Yeah, I'm putting her on my altar. I was like, this is the manifesting. This is just like the manifesting queen. So, and I have to say, I do love that the magician is in the feminine form, because that
was a hard choice.
Yeah, as much as I mean, he's the shaman, right? He's the ultimate shaman, and he has all of the manifesting tools, and conducts the power kind of thing. The feminine is rising, the Shakti is here, right? To say this is where creation really comes from.
Right.
So it's exciting, I love her. She's gonna stay out. She's gonna stay out with me. So the great news is the deck has been amazingly received. People are loving it. And I just got I just opened my my email today quickly just to see what was happening at my US Games work email, and I saw a receiving report with 8,000 Dreamkeepers Tarot that just arrived. So so there's just like Dreamkeepers Tarot is here, and it's booming, and go out and get it. That's what I say.
Awesome.
Get your hands on this. And dive into this beautiful art. Really inspired, great writing. I wanted to ask you what advice would you give to people who are going down this road? There's a lot of people that want to create their own decks or write their own books, or even just doing their art. What inspiration piece of advice could you give to somebody who's maybe walking down this path?
Ooh, I think that's a really good question. The word true keeps coming to mind, and I think that what I mean by that is to be true to who you are, to be true to your process, to be true to the idea, to be true to the system that you're working in, whether it's the Rider-Waite Smith system or another system, like just to be true, and because there were things that I had agendas with certain art that I wanted to convey, but it wasn't true to the piece. And ultimately, like, it had to be true to the work and true to the spirit of the larger spirit of what was being created. So I think that as long as you're true, like, you kind of can't go wrong, right? Like, just be true.
Yeah,
that's
That's a great piece of advice. I think for everybody, really, right? We're moving into this new place in the world, and we have to make some choices, decisions, and kind of align with our truth in making that, right? We don't need to go backwards. We need to go forward. So, what would you consider, aside from your obvious tremendous talent as an artist and creator, what is something else that maybe people don't know about you? Maybe you have a superpower, or there's some other hobby, or some fun interest that maybe people don't know about you that you'd want to share.
Ooh, I love history. I love ancient history, especially Crete and ancient Greece, even Mesopotamia. Like, I love the world as it was 3,000 years ago up until like the first millennium.
All right.
I really, history.
So going back into the Lemurian past lives.
Yeah, all
right?
of it.
Yeah,
oh my gosh, absolutely.
Yeah,
yes.
Awesome. I love that. That's awesome. And if you were one card in this card deck, you could tell me what card you'd be in Rider-Waite too. if that
Ooh.
is easier, what card would you be?
Well, in Rider-Waite, my best friend always equated me with the Queen of Wands because of the cat, and
you kind of look like the Queen of Wands. You have
oh,
yeah.
thanks.
Yeah.
So in Rider-Waite, that would be it. But in mine, it's actually the High Priestess, but it's not because of the High Priestess nature, although that actually works for me too. But because of the creation of the original art. Because there's this book called The Big Book of Birthdays, and every day has a saying that goes with the day. And my birthday is March 4th, which it's the day of creative isolation. And so I set out to make a piece about creative isolation, and that was the piece that I made about what it's like to be, creative person and to have to really solitary in nature when it comes to work, and you kind of have to have everything at the ready and be in touch with all of these other worlds. And she became when I finished her, I was like, oh, she's the High Priestess. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
So.
The subtle, the inward, the inward subtleties, and that. Awesome. Yeah. Amazing. Well, Liz Huston, you were a delight. It's really been nice to talk to you. And I'm going to show the box again here. So the Dreamkeepers Tarot by Liz. She did all of this amazing art and the writing as well. This is a gorgeous set. Look at the book. It's a pretty hefty book. Beautiful presentation, and plenty to be had, which is thrilling. So that's exciting. Yes. And congratulations! What a great achievement. Yeah. And I know you're working on something new. I'm not going to press you about that because I'll let you be in the creative process. Yes. But we'll look forward to hearing about that, and we'll look forward to seeing more from you, Liz, in the future. Yeah. Thanks so much.
Appreciate it.